Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So tonight, see, Sissy got groomed. Look at her. Isn't she pretty? All right, guys. So here's what we got. Um, Pee Wee Herman, also known as Joe Grimaldi of the Houston Police Officers Association. We're going to have a chat about him tonight. Let's start with this article right here. Houston Police Officers Union President Joe Gamaldi is elected Vice President of the Fraternal Order of Police. Now, you guys know what kind of opinion Joe Gamaldi has of activists and freedom in general. For those of you that don't know, he had a very interesting lawsuit filed against him when he was a police officer up in the Northeast. Something along the lines of beating a black man and calling him racial slurs while doing it. I'll have to see if I can find a link to that lawsuit for you guys. But let's go back to this story. Shortly after the results came in Thursday, Joe Gamaldi stepped up to a podium at a New Orleans convention center to thank the sea of cops who tapped him as the Fraternal Order of Police's next vice president. He thanked his wife, mentors, and opponent, a retired Los Angeles Police Department sergeant. Then, after dispensing with pleasantries, he voiced a promise. "We will push back on the things attacking us for the last 5 years," he said, "and we will be a new, bold voice for law enforcement in this country." Really? The vote to help lead the nation's largest law enforcement group representing rank-and-file officers marked the latest step in Gamaldi's swift and sometimes controversial ascent as a union boss. Notice how they use that word union boss? Sounds kind of like something the mafiosa say, huh? Interesting. The 36-year-old native New Yorker moved to Houston in 2008 and was elected vice president of the Houston Police Officers Union in 2013. Officers voted him union president in late 2017. They feel attacked by the mainstream media. They feel as if no one is speaking up for them, Gamaldi said last Friday, as he was returning from the FOP's annual convention in New Orleans. They want someone to step up and remind everyone they're out there putting their lives on the line every single day, and they don't deserve to be treated this way. I beg to differ, but let's not get into that at this point. His election to the board was surprising, observers said, because older or retired law enforcement officers traditionally run the organization, which represents about 350,000 officers across the country. On HoustonChronicle.com, a botched drug raid led to a wave of leaks. Cops peeking at internal records and found themselves under investigation. That's another story. This is the first young blood they've had up at the top in decades, said Ron DeLorde, former longtime president of the Combined Law Enforcement Associations of Texas, one of the largest labor groups in Texas for police and sheriff's deputies. Ray Hunt, Gamaldi's predecessor at HPOU, said officers responded to Gamaldi's energy and passion for officers' rights. Officers' rights. Our rights mean nothing to these people. They've shown that. Joe Gamaldi himself has shown that. He wants us to get in front of issues that can sometimes take hold and the wrong narrative gets out there, he said. Hands up, don't shoot in Ferguson would never have taken place in Houston. No, my door is locked, don't kick it in and kill me. That's what we do in Houston. Gamaldi's rise mirrors that of his boss, Houston Police Chief Art Acevedo, who in January assumed control of the Major Cities Chief Association, which represents police executives in the largest cities in the United States and Canada. Acevedo moved to Houston in 2016 after stints in Austin and California. Both he and Art came from outside of Houston and came and made their mark here, Delord said. That's the history of Texas. People come here and make their mark. It's a place where you can do that. Absolutely. Houston is a great town. Unfortunately, it's these mafia types and organized criminals and domestic terrorists that have been coming here that are the problem, not the native Houstonians. They have both courted controversy as they have grown more prominent and more political. Acevedo has grown increasingly vocal in his criticisms of President Trump and calling for measures to reduce gun violence, feuding with NRA after mass shootings in Santa Fe and Sutherland Springs, where Gamaldi made national waves after a deadly drug raid in South Houston earlier this year erupted into a shootout, killing 2 homeowners and injuring 5 officers. In the immediate aftermath, Gamaldi lashed out on national TV saying law enforcement was sick and tired of being targeted by dirtbags trying to kill police. Well, Joe, I got to tell you, a lot of us citizens are tired of being targeted too by corrupt cops, by corrupt killer cops. So the feeling's mutual. Acevedo later revealed the officers at the center of the raid was under investigation for allegedly lying about an informant and the drug buy he used to justify the raid. Gamaldi's sharp rhetoric infuriated community activists who said he jumped to unfair conclusions without all the facts. At the HPOU, Gamaldi also raised eyebrows for his public battle with Houston Professional Firefighters Association over firefighters' efforts to win the same pay as police officers, and for his frequent critiques of local judges and prosecutors for dispensing low bonds to suspects later accused of committing violent crimes. Okay, so here's the issue with that. Many of these suspects that they're complaining about were framed by officers and didn't need to be in jail because they were framed for crimes they didn't commit. Duh. So, but, Gamaldi doesn't care about that. He just wants everybody in jail. If you're not a cop, now if you are a cop, he doesn't want you in jail. The Houston Police Officers Union will make your bond and get you a high-powered lawyer to make sure you don't go to jail. His election now puts him at the top of one of the nation's most conservative law enforcement organizations, which in 2017 called on Trump to reverse a past federal ban on racial profiling. You get that? They want the ban lifted on racial profiling. Repeal the Affordable Care Act, deport immigrants in the U.S. illegally, and end the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, which allowed some children brought in illegally by their parents to receive work permits. On Friday, news of Gamaldi's election surprised some local civil rights advocates. The louder you are, the more attention you get, said Hai Bui of We the People Organize, a group that protested HPD's bungled raid in Pecan Park, and has called for justice for Regina Nichols and Dennis Tuttle, who died in the raid. In the months since that shooting, Gamaldi has continued to loudly criticize shootings of law enforcement officers, including after 6 Philadelphia officers were wounded Wednesday serving a narcotics warrant. Whether Gamaldi will soften his approach in this new post remains to be seen. Folks who have watched what we have done, the HPOU, what I have done as an individual in the community, truly understand we do care about the community, and they know who I really am and what I really feel about the people who support law enforcement and the people who are reasonable out there, he said. Now, I'm a reasonable guy. I think I'm a reasonable guy. I think that most of you would agree I'm a reasonable guy. But I don't think it's right. I don't think that racial profiling is right. And I have to say I'm not surprised that the Fraternal Order of Police and its members would put somebody like Joe Gamaldi, who has a history of racially motivated violence, in such a position of power. Um, for those of you who don't know, there is a large segment within the Fraternal Order of Police that are Ku Klux Klan members. Um, it's common knowledge. Funny how they don't talk about it. But, okay, moving right along here. Oh, by the way, the Fraternal Order of Police is another one of those organizations that has put a bounty on me. So, you know, my opinions about them may be a little biased. Alrighty, here is Joe Gamaldi again. He just did an interview with our local station, and I'm going to play that interview for you. There is a significant, this is according to Joe Gamaldi, significant drop in people wanting to become police officers. Now this, you're going to love this. Let me get this to play.
There has been a significant drop in the number of people who want to become police officers across this country and right here in Houston. One officer says he knows why. Take a look. Joe, when we talk about a shortage of police officers, we have a shortage here in Houston and also around the country because you're national vice president of FOP, Fraternal Order of Police.
Yeah, you know, we've seen law enforcement applications actually go down by 63% in this country last year. And what you're really seeing is people no longer want to take up the profession of being a police officer. And I feel like a direct result of that is all of the anti-police rhetoric and the false narratives that are out there right now. And we're actually seeing educated people that we want to bring into the police department.
What? Educated people don't want to be police officers because there are false narratives being spread. I wonder what these false narratives would be. Breaking in to homes on falsified warrants, murdering homeowners. Yeah, I mean, what educated person wouldn't want to be part of that, right? Let's go back to the video.
Are voting with their feet and they're taking up other professions.
So what can you do about the negative narrative that's out there about police officers? What are you guys working on both here in Houston and nationally?
So we're always reaching out to the community. We're going into the schools. We're trying to convince people, hey, we're the good guys. We're out here to help you. But mostly what we're trying to get across to people is comply with the officer out on the scene. If you're unhappy with the result of it, then go ahead and file a complaint. Because a lot of these viral incidents and the things we're seeing could all be avoided if the person were to comply with the officer's orders. And if...
What? A lot of these viral incidents that we're seeing could be avoided if people would just comply with the officers. The problem is, the officers are wrong most of the time. Most of these viral videos that he's yapping about here are of police officers doing the wrong thing, getting out of control. And he said, well, go make a complaint. Well, the problem with that is, for instance, the Harris County Sheriff's Department Internal Affairs Division. I made a complaint, I don't know, 18 months ago about an officer using a falsified document as a parking permit. I had a Precinct 1 constable come out and look at it, and he knew it was false as well, but he wouldn't do anything. I went over to ID, made a complaint, ended up in the trash can. Most police departments investigate themselves and find they did no wrong. That is an issue. The lack of transparency in their investigations is an issue. People don't trust you. Do you get that, Joe Gamaldi? People don't trust you. They don't trust the departments, and it's because of the lack of transparency and because of your lies. Not because of any false narrative or somebody didn't do what they were told to do, you know, and then we don't have to. This isn't a comply or die world. That's not your job, and it's not our function as your bosses, okay, Mr. Mafioso. It's not our job to comply or die. You're peace officers. You're supposed to be doing the right thing. Take your egos out of the equation. We won't have the viral videos, and you won't have anything to stand around and complain about. Sorry about the soapbox, guys. We'll go back to the video.
If we're wrong, well then by all means we need to be held accountable. But the time to argue and fight about it is not on the side of the street, and it's not doing us any good.
And of course, you do have to admit, though, there are some bad police officers out there. A small percentage, but there are some bad ones that give you guys a bad name.
Absolutely. There are bad apples out there that are giving us a bad name. One police officer can do untold harm. But what I tell folks is it's no different than any other profession. Just because a doctor...
How you like that? One of them can do untold harm. Well, the truth of this is Joe Gamaldi hit the nail right on the head. Joe Gamaldi himself, with his little press conference after the Tuttle murders, did untold damage within the community. There were a lot of people that, even activists, that have a good or had a good relationship with Houston PD, and Joe Gamaldi screwed that up.
Doctor loses a patient on a table to a mistake they made, do we now start yelling at every single doctor? Do we stop going to our doctor's appointments? Do we...
No, well, if a doctor, he used an example here. He says if a doctor loses a patient on the table, do we stop going to the doctors? Do we you know, what do we do to hold them accountable? Well, now doctors have liability insurance, and if they get too many accidents, they become uninsurable. And then they become unemployable. I would 100% back doing that with police officers. Let's make them get liability insurance. When they become uninsurable through their own actions, through lawsuits and whatnot, when they become uninsurable, then they become unemployed. 100% I will back that up.
Resist doctors that are giving us advice? Of course not. It's the same thing with police work. Just because we have a bad apple doesn't mean you demonize the entire profession.
Do you think diversity on the police force or forces around the country would help out, where you have individuals who look like the police officer that may be stopping them?
Oh, now this is hilarious. Now, here we have this, I shouldn't call him a Klansman. That's just wrong of me. I shouldn't say that. All right. So here we have this guy who was sued for beating a black man while calling him the N-word over and over and over, and he's going to talk to us about diversity. Now that's funny.
Sure, I mean, I think diversity is important in any field, and right now we have a majority-minority department here in Houston that really reflects the city that we have. I think it's important that diversity in every single police department, but I also want people to know our officers are professional enough, they've never been better trained, they've never been better educated than they are right now, and regardless of their race, they're going to provide you that service that they should be providing, and they're going to respect you. But the important thing is, on the side of the road at that traffic stop, on the scene of that crime, whatever it may be, comply with what the officer is telling you to do. It is no time to argue, and that's part of the reason why we have some of these viral incidents.
Okay, so I'm going to agree with Gamaldi on something here. If you're in the midst of a traffic stop, standing on the side of the road is not the place to argue this, okay? You need to, you argue that in court, or you go make a complaint. All right, I 100% agree with that. It is dangerous standing beside the roadway. It is dangerous to be out on a traffic stop with a police officer. Okay, remember, these people murder people without consequences. You don't want to be that person. So you don't want to be the guy that upsets some steroid hyped up officer who then proceeds to murder you. So you don't argue with these guys on the side of the street. Now, as far as videoing something or being on a crime scene or whatever, there's a time and a place to assert your rights and stand up for yourself. All right, you have to take that on a situation by situation basis. Don't look at what I do and try to emulate me, okay, unless you are very well versed in the law and know that you're 100% right and are willing to take an arrest for it, because there's a good chance that's what it will result in if you're dealing with crooked cops. Oh, back to video.
Do you think because of social media things are getting worse when there is an encounter with a police officer? Because people see so many videos on social media, as soon as they stop, they're pulling out their phone.
Sure, as I've said, we have never been more educated, we have never been better trained, And we have phenomenal people that are working on the police departments all across this country. But all they need is a viral snippet of an officer. Maybe that officer was doing wrong, or maybe that clip is taken out of context. But the fact of the matter is, it starts this whole outrage, and that outrage spreads nationwide, and it needs to stop. Because our officers are sick and tired of being demonized and made to be the bad guys when they got into this profession to help people.
Okay. There's so many lies here to contend with. It's difficult to keep track of them all. All right, so what they're not liking is that things that have been happening for years and been, undiscovered or unheard of, because there was no social media. When I grew up, nobody had cameras that they carried around. Cameras were expensive. We didn't even have disposable cameras. Nobody had Facebook or Twitter or anything to share, videos if you did have them. Okay? This is something that has come along, and now we're seeing what has really been happening out there for years. And law enforcement hasn't caught up yet. They're still behind the curve. They're still doing stupid stuff and getting caught at it, and then people like Gamaldi complain because they got caught. Not because the officer did wrong. He's not going to stand there and say, well, yeah, the officer was wrong. No, it's a viral video that's painting us in a bad light. It's painting you in a bad light because your officers are doing the wrong thing. Do the right thing. You got no video. How hard is that?
So what is the first order of business to try and address this negative image and the shortage?
Well, I think what's most important is officers across this country, and whether it's police unions or chiefs, when there is a false narrative out there, when people are constantly touting anti-police rhetoric, we need to push back and say, no, these are the good men and women of law enforcement, because frankly, it needs to stop. We need to stop demonizing the hardworking men and women of law enforcement. For far too long, we've been dragged through the mud, and our officers are out there doing a good job every single day. We're seeing water dumped on them in New York.
Okay, now, there's a quick snippet here of some people splashing police officers who are making an arrest in I don't know if that's New York or Philadelphia. Okay, but that is absolutely 100% wrong. 100% wrong. You wouldn't want somebody to do it to you if you were working. Don't do it to them. And you're going to say, oh, well, they were making a false arrest or whatever. Okay, get the viral video. That'll do more damage than anything else. Instead, what we have is a viral video of people being stupid with the police and abusing these police officers. And I don't know this cop. Maybe he's a good cop. Maybe he's a bad cop. I don't know. It's not fair to do that.
Seen in Philadelphia where they're responding to 6 officers shot and people are screaming and throwing things at them. We don't believe that this is acceptable in a normal society, a reasonable society, and it needs to stop. And I think once we get that turned around, maybe we'll see more people that want to be law enforcement officers. But right now, we're not seeing it because of these reasons. Because smart, educated people, the exact people we want on this department, don't want to be a part of getting spit on, getting buckets thrown at them, water thrown on them, and they're seeing those videos just like everybody else is.
How about this? Smart, educated people don't want to be corrupt. Don't want to be part of an agency that murders innocent citizens in their home and then lies about it and demonizes everybody else. It's called deflection. You're lying, Joe Gamaldi. You're lying. You're lying. Own up. Transparency. Transparency is number one. Tell the truth. If you do the right thing, tell the truth. If you do the wrong thing, tell the truth and make it right. Transparency. And hold people who do wrong accountable. Those two things right there. Transparency, accountability. Make great strides in resolving the major issues that exist between law enforcement and the communities. And stop having these officers that get butthurt and make these contempt of cop arrests. Stop attacking activists who are activists because you're doing the wrong thing. Do the right thing and the activists tend to go away. There's nothing to activate, right? And that was the end of that video. So that's it, guys. I just wanted to share that with you. Sorry about the rambling, but you know how it is when I get on my soapbox. I hope you found that informative. I am not happy that old Mr. Gamaldi is associating with a domestic terrorist organization like the Fraternal Order of Police, but you know, what do you expect from the Houston Police Officers Union? Nothing else. Y'all be safe, and I'll see you again soon.